Hey everyone, we are going to take another look at how to make decks for Tabletop Simulator and other things. And apparently I've actually gotten this to record everything that I'm doing in GIMP, so that's a nice change. So the first thing you're going to need, of course, is your deck. I've got mine open in a document over here with all the card names and the keywords and the card text, and importantly, the flavor text. You're also going to want some images. I'm just going to go ahead and show these off real quick. The card back I've already created. You just make this with the blank card template. I'll get to those in a minute. I made this earlier. I think the background here is a screenshot, and then I mocked up the text myself. But the rest of it is screenshots that I have taken. It looks like I cut off the black bars, but I spent a day going through about half a dozen or so relevant episodes looking for decent scenes he was hard to get a good shot of, and eventually found enough that looks pretty good, so I can go ahead and start making card art. So we will begin the Castle of the Royal Pony Sisters. So one thing to note, and it's going to depend on what your screen resolution is, what size you're watching things at. I carved these out by opening up episodes in VLC and going full screen. I think it turned out, because I was using them on my square monitor here, it turned out that going full screen wasn't actually necessary because it didn't make them any bigger. But then along with that, we will need the environment card template. These templates were created by, I think his name is Koga. They've got everything you need. They're very nice. There's a couple things to note depending on the type of card you're making. The layer that's highlighted right now is an HP box. I'm not going to need that for this one because it's not a monster. So we'll just go ahead and delete that layer. I think I could also hide it, but I don't know if that comes out in the end. The keyword box is its own layer, and if I was making something that doesn't have any keywords, which is fairly common for environment cards, I could also hide that, but we'll leave that there. One more thing that I have is a listing of how big everything needs to be, which is off here to the side for easy access. So the first thing we're going to do is make the title. So, text, crash landing, and according to my template, we need 82 points. The thing about making text on GIMP is that the text box needs to be a little bit above and a little bit below what you're actually trying to fit. I don't know why, but usually when I have typed out a full name, I'll have to take and adjust it up a little bit more to center it. This card is called Castle of the Royal Pony Sisters. Okay, that's too big. So already we're off to a bad start. I'm going to reduce that to 80. And then this box down here is adjust letter spacing. So I'm going to reduce the letter spacing until it all fits. Ooh, that looks really nasty. One more would be too much. Okay, so -4 on letter spacing. And I'm going to have to be careful later on because that adjustment is going to save for future text creations where I'm not necessarily going to want to use it. One other thing I need to do, you're supposed to put a space at the start. I think I'm going to forego that on this just because the title is so long. The next thing we need is the correct color. In this case, it's fairly easy. You want bright red and bright yellow. See, there's no anti-aliasing. So we will take and right-click on the layer, hit Alpha to Selection, which essentially selects everything that isn't blank. We'll go over here to the Gradient tool, and let's see if I get this right. So I've got this highlighted, which means that's all that's going to be affected by the gradient. Start at the top. I hold Control so it's straight. The S is a very tall letter in Crash Landing, so it's a good idea to use that for your guide. And I think that's right. I think red is supposed to be on top. Let me just double check here. Actually, no. It looks like it's supposed to be the other way around. So let's undo that, swap those, zoom back in, and do it the right way. Oop. Okay, yeah, now that I'm seeing it, that's what I'm supposed to be doing. Okay, next thing we need to do is outline it. We want to leave the selection as it is. Control-Shift-N creates a new layer, and the selection stays in place. So currently in this layer, if you're able to, let's take and just close everything else off, this is the layer we're working in. It is completely blank, but it is selected in an outline of the words Castle of the Royal Pony Sisters. Now we go up here to Select, hit Grow. We'll go up to 2 pixels and increase that size. Go back to the default colors. Paint can, colored in black. Oh no, what happened? Well, we take the layer, move it down below the text, and suddenly we have a nice outline. And that's all you have to do to make the title. Again, like I said, you do need to put a space at the start to orient it properly, but this card has a really long title, so we're just not going to do that this time. Now let's make the image. Image is 500 high. Okay, so my image here is way wider than it is high, so I'm just going to scale it down to 500 pixels. So that's as high as the white space over here. I might change that later, but we'll just go ahead and copy the whole thing. Go down here to frame, which is, I should mention, a layer that I created, and save to the template. Okay, there we go. So paste that in and just go ahead and center it however you feel works best. I think having it slightly off center is a good idea for that. So you get a good look at the castle. It's ruined. There's pathway going up. I was thinking if it didn't look too good, I would go back, zoom out essentially by scaling it closer to its normal size so you just saw the castle, but I think that looks good. It gives a good sign of the scene. Yeah, and I like how it came out. Next up is the keyword. Keyword for this is house, because that has synergy with some of my other decks. The keyword is in red state, blue state, as is everything else. 40-point bold. And let's see, this is positioned about 1/3 of the way to the left. Reduce the size and favor fitting the keywords in the box. Reduce the size and also put the letter spacing back to where it's supposed to be. And then spell it right, that helps too. And change the font, that's better, and make it bold. So the first thing I want to try and do is get that centered vertically. That's about right. I think you want a little bit of lead-in, so like 2 or 3 spaces there. And then we're going to shrink the keyword box. This is when doing this kind of thing becomes lots of fun, by which I mean a royal pain in the ass. So I'm working in the keyword box layer, which is important because when you create text, it creates a new layer. So I'm in the keyword box. I'm going to take and highlight just the right-hand portion of this, cut it, paste it, hold Control while dragging, move it over to about there. Yeah, that makes the keyword look about centered. Then we'll take and zoom in and just with our eraser line that right up with the side of it there and get rid of the rest of it. And like magic, it's like it was never even there. So, Castle of the Royal Pony Sisters, house. Now we need some card text. I will just go ahead and copy that out of my document over here. This is still red state, blue state, but it is 30 point. Want to leave a little bit of margin to the left and right. And move that down just a bit. So this isn't too long, so I can go ahead and put a space in there, highlight start just so people know what's going on. So we've got reduce all damage dealt by 1, start of the environment, turn the players may play the top card of the environment deck. If a card is played this way, destroy this card. Okay, that looks perfectly fine. That's not how this usually goes. Usually this is a pain in the ass. I am, however, going to go over here to this thing and adjust the line spacing down to about, oh, -2 looks okay. For wordier cards, you may need to take it down as far as -5. I've had to do that already with other cards. Last thing we need is the flavor text. Flavor text for environment cards is extremely easy, because number 1, it doesn't necessarily need to be dialogue, and number 2, it goes in a nice square box. The size for flavor text is 24 point, red state, blue state. So let's go ahead and do that and just change it there. So I should note that the flavor text for this deck, with minor exception, I've written myself, sometimes taking quotes from the show, sometimes not, but since environment card flavor text tends to be more narrative than dialogue, there's not a lot of narration in the show. So I've actually got a whole line that I could use to add more stuff in here. We'll put in something cheesy like the elements lay within. Somewhere within lay the elements of harmony. And it fit. Excellent. I'll go ahead and make a change to that in my document. And this card is done. That was really easy. Yeah, that card is done. So we'll go ahead and save it, and the keyboard combination for that is Control-Shift-E for export, because if you don't do that, it saves it as GIMP's own weird thing. Okay, that's called Castle 03. I gotta make sure I don't use the same name for the images as I do for the screenshots, so we'll just call this Castle, and save it as a PSD. That's the file format for, like, Photoshop, and that's what we'll be using if we need to make any changes. Come in, change the PSD to make sure everything looks nice, because you'll still have the layers to work with, and then we take and Control-Shift-E, change that to PNG, and the actual screenshot is called Castle 03, so I can save that without any problems. And that's a card. I'll go ahead and do one more, just so we can get a monster in here. Let's make that the cockatrice. Open up my environment card template again. So one thing about the deck that I'm making is that almost all of the creatures are nemesis for my hero decks. So I'll show you how to throw a nemesis symbol in here as well. First, we're going to do hit points. The cockatrice has 4. Crash landing 140 point, which sounds enormous, but crash landing is a really small font for some reason. Line spacing doesn't have to be changed because we're only going to have one character. There won't even be lines. 4 in there. Yeah, that's the right size. Manipulate the box a bit to center that. That looks about right. Now, as for the hit point box itself, it's worth keeping this layer around just so you know what size to make it. You can make your own. I made a custom hit point box for our town, but it looks super crappy. Just not gonna lie, it looks terrible. That said, environment decks don't necessarily have their own. Villain decks do, the later hero decks do, which is to say Unity and Captain Cosmic do. This style HP box is what Visionary has for her decoy projection, and it's what shows up more or less in the digital game. So I have decided that this is fine. I don't care. This is good enough for me. You know, I always exhort people to support the official release because I care about grading the games. I want these games to succeed, also because I don't want to get sued. But it's also just sort of prudent to have the physical cards because you can look at them and be like, oh, that's what this looks like. So what I'm seeing from the environments is that, yes, they all do have different HP boxes, and the number is just black, just flat black. And that's fine by me. I don't know what I would create if I wanted to make an HP box for this, so it doesn't matter. So we're going to go ahead and create the name. This should fit in the space that we have. And it's worth going a little bit beyond. We're actually going to have the text just in case. Move that up, try and get it centered vertically. Perfect. And then we'll do what we did last time, and there's your name. The cockatrice is a monster, and I want to do the keyword before I do the nemesis. And what I will probably do is make up all of my monsters at once, and that way I don't have to keep doing this. Keyword is set, text is set. Let's go ahead and put that picture in there. So he's going to fill up the whole box, so we will shrink this down to 500, because there's not much to this image. So now I have to make a design choice. This is centered on the image, but it's not really centered on the cockatrice itself. So I'm going to move it back over. Try and get his head in the middle of the frame. Yeah, that looks better. Do the text. Fairly straightforward. And a lot of this is. Lastly, the flavor text. And given that the previous one was a little short on flavor text, this one might be as well. We'll see. Whoops. Oh no, this should be fine. This should be about 4 lines of text. So that is perfect, just like that. Nice and even, and everything's done. There's your cockatrice. Boom. So this one is the same as the screenshot. What I should do is go in and change all the screenshots so they all say 01. That's pretty much all you need to know for making environment cards. I'm going to go ahead and make the full deck. I will probably make an 8x2 image for the deck itself because, I mean, normally I would do like 10x2 and just have a couple unused cards, but if you think about it, 8x2 is going to be the full 15 card deck plus one more for the card back just in case, and that will take up less space. There will be nothing wasted, and it'll be a smaller file size, and that's what we want. Hold the phone, I almost forgot. I said I was going to show you how to do nemesis, and I didn't do that. So we're going to take a second and do that right now. So the cockatrice is Fluttershy's nemesis. First thing you'll need, and I'm pretty sure this comes with the templates. I could be wrong, but there's a file called nemesis.png. It's this round thingy over here. And the first thing you'll note is it's really fucking big. It's as big as that entire card. Seriously, it's 600 by 600. This card is 754 across, so we're going to have to shrink it down eventually actually to 70 by 70. It's 111 by 111 for characters. The next thing you'll need is an image for your nemesis symbol, and I just so happened to have found a set of all the cutie marks, which are the nemesis symbols I'm using. Go figure. They're like just about the right size for this, I think. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this one out of here. So now I've got my plain cutie mark image. Doesn't look like I did. Okay, so I actually want to take that border out. That's easy enough. Just select it, hit delete, and it's gone. Alright, so after removing all those artifacts, I've cut it down to just being that. So this is 600 by 600, that's 235 by 236. So the thing that we want is we want inside here to be 235 by 235 or thereabouts, maybe a little bit smaller so the cutie mark actually fits into it. So that's 534. The whole image is 600, so we're going to math this out real quick. The answer is about 266. We'll make that 265 just so, like I said, it's a little bit smaller. So now that the two images are the same size, we're going to make a new layer, put that underneath the nemesis icon. Go over here, copy our cutie mark, paste it in. It's centered automatically, and there it is in the nemesis symbol ring with the little glow that we wanted. And now all we have to do is scale it down to, what was that again? 70 pixels. And that is our nemesis symbol. Bring it over here, make sure you're in the right layer. I know what we'll do. We'll take the layer and move it up above keyword box, which means we also need to move cockatrice. So now we can put the nemesis symbol into the same layer as the outline for cockatrice, and it'll be right where we need it to be. Except that I didn't get the whole thing because I'm stupid. One last thing that we need to do is go over here and hit merge down, and that turns it all into one layer. So copy the whole thing, paste it in here, and then you want to have it about like that, so it's even this way, even this way. Now that being said, there's a little bit of artifacting around this really light stuff that I don't want, so I'm going to go over here. We're going to deselect all of the blank spots. Go over here to select, and remember we used grow to do the outline. We're going to hit shrink here. We're just going to go by 1 pixel, and that should get rid of the light outline. Go back over here. Oh yeah, that's perfect. I mean, there's still a little bit where you can tell it doesn't quite line up, but this looks a lot better. And that's about centered there and centered there. So that's our nemesis symbol. And that's all good to go. And then we'll just take and save it again. Okay, so now, next time I come back here, we'll do hero cards.